Happy Devils, excuse me, Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 151, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief, Nick Villano. Tonight's podcast title is, I couldn't think of anything, Devils in FantasyLand. I don't know why I chose that, but Devils in FantasyLand. We got a special guest coming up. One of the original guests that this podcast has ever had. His name is Chris Wassel. He'll be on very shortly. Nick, how are you, my friend? There's a lot of chatter on Twitter about the Devils, because that March 21st deadline, NHL trade deadline, is coming up soon, and I think a lot of people are speculating some moves can be made.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on the line right now. I don't really know what exactly. You know, I got a lot of flack on Twitter this week because I wrote about the Jesper Bratt rumor that the Devils will make him possibly available, and people didn't like that. Vinny also wrote about it. He didn't get as much flack as me, but Vinny usually gets more flack than me, so I'm not going to complain about that. But here's the thing, is that I don't think, you know, it all came from Daily Faceoff and Frank Saravalli, and Frank Saravalli he has enough receipts at this point that he doesn't just say things. It's very telling that the promotion of his podcast, he used the clip where he said that Jesper Bratt might be available. He made it a point to make that, you know, it's not something that we pulled out of nowhere, Sam. Daily Faceoff used that to promote what the Frank Saravalli podcast. And Frank Saravalli, again, he's not just a rumor monger. He's not just the guy who pulls things out of his you-know-where and just kind of throws it out there and see if, like he wasn't saying, you know, I guess he kind of framed it as, I wonder if Jesper Bratt is available. Well, we know that teams are asking about him. Teams are asking about a lot of things. And if you ask me, Sam, there are two players this year that are getting hard nose, and that's Nico Hischier and Jack Hughes. You know, there's a couple prospects, like they're not trading Luke Hughes. I'd be hard pressed to see them trade Alexander Holtz. I'd be hard pressed to see them trade, you know, a couple other guys. But I think they're listening to everything. You know, I think Dawson Mercer's on the list too. I don't think they're ever going to trade Dawson Mercer for anything right now. There's no upside to trading that kind of an asset at this point in the rebuild. Somebody who could play center and wing, somebody who's doing well with Hughes right now. I don't see the value in that. But I think everything else is on the table. You know, whether it's roster players like Pavel Zacha and Jesper Bratt and Miles Wood. I know we haven't seen him all year, but he's a player that people might be interested in because he still has RFA rights. Michael McLeod and Nathan Bastian. I don't think you're going to get the value of them where it would be worth trading, but I think people are going to ask. If somebody comes to you, Sam, and you've seen the impact that Nathan Bastian's made on this team, if somebody gives you a first-round pick for Nathan Bastian, are you going to take that?
I would.
You got to play value here. Do I think somebody's giving you a first-round pick for Nathan Bastian? No, he was on waivers earlier this year, and we won out the waivers. I don't think somebody's going to give you a first-round pick for a player who, they at one point had no value, and now he has immense value to the Devils specifically because of their lack of grit and ability to hit. He's already leading the team in hits by a lot. But if a team comes to you and says, "Here's a first-round pick for that asset," I think you take that. Even I think that's where his value. That's where his value is. The Devils. Anything less, I'm not really considering. But if someone's going to wow you for any of the pieces on your roster right now, or any of the prospects, if somebody really likes Shakir Mukhamadullin, or really likes even our first-round pick, I think is up for grabs in the right deal. The problem is it has to be the right deal, and it's harder to get those right deals at the trade deadline than it is to get them in the offseason. I think when more teams are looking to reshuffle the deck in the offseason, I think the Devils are one of the few teams looking to reshuffle the deck now, though, and there could be value in that. But when it comes to Jesper Bratt, I don't see the value. I don't. I think you lose every Jesper Bratt trade you make. I think it's almost impossible to make a Jesper Bratt trade where you're getting equal value on the other side. And that's because there's just not, the only trade I could think of, there's two that come to mind, Sam. One would be for Alex DeBrincat of the Chicago Blackhawks. And the other would be for Rasmus Dahlin of the Buffalo Sabres. Two very different trades. DeBrincat is another small forward who's good at scoring. He has a lot of good numbers up and down, whether you're an analytics guy or a eye test guy, everything kind of like works out for him. And he's clearly somebody who could turn into maybe even like a Braden Point type, which is wonderful. But, Chicago's another team that said that might be for sale right now. And with Marc-Andre Fleury saying he might want to just stay in Chicago, that takes an asset off the table for them that they were looking to trade. That might make them more looking into reshuffling the deck and making a move for DeBrincat. And then for Dahlin, who knows what Buffalo's doing? And who knows what else could be in that trade? It's definitely not going to be a 1-for-1 Dahlin for Bratt. It would be a lot more to go with that. And I feel like Dahlin would have to start pushing the envelope and getting the front office to know he doesn't want to be there anymore for it to actually go down like that. But those are two names that intrigued me. I really tried to find a goalie that made sense. Spencer Knight is somebody I considered. Vinny wrote about that a little bit. Jesper Wallstedt is somebody I mentioned. Minnesota is in a weird spot right now, and they do need a goalie, so I don't think they would do it, but their window's right now, and I don't think Wallstedt is ready to carry a playoff team. And next year they're in a pretty bad way when it comes to the cap, so it might not work either way. But trying to make a goalie work, which is the one thing you really need to fix when you're the Devils, I just don't see a team giving up a star-level goalie, somebody who's going to make an automatic fix. There's a lot that can happen. Heck, I don't know, Sam. The Devils could trade for Carey Price. That would be weird, but it would take a lot. I don't really want to take on that contract after he hasn't played all season, but wouldn't you feel a lot better going into next season with Mackenzie Blackwood and Carey Price than anything else out there? If you really, like Sam, if you really want to, if the main goal is to just end this torture, end this just dread of what this era of Devils hockey is, would you not at least consider taking the best goalie of this era. Even, he's had some mental health issues this year, but maybe it's good for him because it also lets him rest a body that's been overworked for the past decade. There's a lot going on here. I know I've thrown a lot at you, Sam, but what's kind of your initial thoughts of all this?
I don't like to do things half-ass. So, right now, if Nico Dawes or Schmid would be the future, this is an if scenario. To have Fitzgerald right now has failed twice in getting a veteran goaltender with the Devils, but they didn't cost the Devils that much. They didn't
just money.
Just money, and they have cap space, and they've got one more. After this season, one more year with the Bernier deal, and we don't know his health at all, really. So here lies the question, and this is I still believe the Devils are 2 years away of being on the cusp of a playoff spot. Getting a goaltender now is not going to solve all of the Devils' problems. It will mask some of the Devils' problems. It would be nice to be competitive, but Carey Price, no. If Fitzgerald's going to pull off a big trade for a number one goaltender, it's going to be with the team with salary cap issues or some kind of financial problem. And I haven't looked at it, so don't kill me by saying it.
Yeah.
But could you pluck anyone out of Tampa?
Are you talking about Vasilevsky? They're not trading Vasilevsky. They're not trading Vasilevsky. So
they would trade everybody else but him at this point, you think?
I mean Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the league. They're not going to lose that asset. The people who I think are never leaving Tampa are Braden Point, Steven Stamkos, Vasilevsky, and Hedman. I think they trade Kucherov before they trade any of those four. So
fair enough. I'm just only pointing out an example of a salary cap potentially. Yeah. You gotta take one.
And Ryan McDonough still has a lot of value. So if they were in a bad way, they would just trade Ryan McDonough. So I think that's kind of the deal. There's other deals that they can make with Palat and a couple other guys on that roster that they would hurt their bottom six, but there's moves that they can make. That is the point of the story. Sam, I pined across the league to see where it was even possible to blow somebody out of the water and try to get somebody out of somewhere.
Well, to tell you the truth, I thought Fitzgerald missed an opportunity when the Dallas Stars goaltender was on waivers back in November, December.
Khudobin?
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad move because you're not really giving up much.
The problem is he has another year left on his contract.
Yeah, so and then the problem is with Bernier. Yeah. But you're going to have to eat one I'm not sure if Bernier is going to be here next year.
No,
I'm not based on rumor.
But even with the buyout, you would be spending $9 million on Khudobin and Blackwood, and I don't know if your problem is solved. You know what I mean?
But I just don't. I wouldn't mortgage the future for a goaltender at this point. I truly believe. Right now it could be Schmid or Dawes in the future.
I like Dawes. I really like Dawes. Are you
part of the Dawes Pound? Are you part of the Dawes Pound?
I didn't know that was a thing.
Steve Tardis talks about the Dawes Pound. It's like the rage right now. Buy Dawes. Dawes eat Dawes.
It looks like Steve's out in the comment section today. We got no Steve Tardis in the comment section. He's gonna feel real bad about himself when he comes in and watches the replay of the podcast. He was like, "They mentioned me. Oh, where's my comment?"
We got to get our next guest on. Sorry,
we got to get the guest.
We're getting carried away. Yeah.
It's all good. We're getting Chris Wassel on. We haven't had him on in a little while. We've been trying to find the right time, and somebody mentioned his name when I was asking around about trade deadline people. And we're excited to talk to him about a lot of the rumors that's going on. He writes. I didn't even know which he writes for so many websites. I didn't know which one to put down. He writes for Full Press Hockey. He writes for some of the rumor sites. He writes about Daily Fantasy. He writes for the Game Day. This is his byline. Writer for Full Press Coverage, The Game Day, Vegas Sports Betting, Fantasy SP, Number Fire, NHL Rumors, and Roto Baller. He's a FSWA member. He's somebody who writes for just about anybody. I'm surprised I haven't hired him at this point. But Chris Wassel is just somebody, he knows a lot. He's been around hockey at all levels for a long time. So I'm excited to get him on to kind of opine about some of these rumors and see what's going on with the Devils, because it's rumor season right now. Like I thought it was going to be really. I didn't think there was going to be a lot of smoke around the Devils. I really didn't. I thought there was going to be some Zacha smoke. Some teams looking to, maybe Zacha is a player that we want. And I thought that was going to be the big rumor. I thought that was the one that was going to blow everybody away when that came out a few weeks ago. I thought that was it. Maybe the Devils, are looking to move Zacha. Then we got tied to Besser. Then other teams are getting tied to Bratt. There's so much going on with this Devils team now that I did not expect. Sam, you're back already. Look at that.
Well, not exactly. It's going straight to voicemail.
Oh,
he must be busy.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait, he's calling. Keep talking.
Okay. He's calling us. Oh, well, that's good. It's good when the guest calls you. Shows excitement. Shows a factor of happiness. Yeah, I don't know. I went too far with that one. But yeah, so I think that the Devils are in a situation, and Jerry in the comment section of Facebook says, I like that Sam think big. And I was talking about Vasilevsky. We're not getting Vasilevsky. Do you know somebody who I would? So the one guy I was thinking of when I did this, I talked about Drieger on Seattle. He's somebody who would make a lot of sense. Somebody who would make no sense to move right now is John Gibson of Anaheim. I don't think he's available. I don't. This is why you have to go and you have to throw, what would you have to do to get somebody like that? You'd have to throw in Dawson Mercer. And I don't think that they're going to ever come up to an agreement that's even worth talking about. Sam, you're back again.
I'm back again. I was just listening in. Look, we've gone this far. If you blow it up now, I'm going to even be more pissed. Because I really do believe in 2 years, it will all come together. And we still haven't seen the fruits of Tom Fitzgerald's work with some of these first-round picks since he became the interim GM of the Devils. Or was he interim or was he GM? I don't remember.
He was interim during the draft, and then he got it after the draft. It's a very weird situation. But
I hope he got a big fat raise, though. That would be cool.
We'll see.
Yeah. Alrighty. So our next guest, he's one of the original guests of the Let's Go Devils podcast years ago. Probably before it was season 1. Or was it season 1? I don't remember. His name is Chris Wassel. He's a Jersey guy. He's a hockey writer extraordinaire. You can find him on Twitter at Chris Wassel DFS. Chris, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
Good evening, boys. Feels like a long time no talk.
I know. It's been a while. I've been waiting for the right time. And somebody brought up your name this week, and I was like, you know what? Let's get Chris back on. Let's get Chris to talk some rumors. You ready to talk some rumors, Chris?
I'm always ready to talk rumors. I mean, I joke with everybody. It's like, oh, they're bringing that dick on again.
Sometimes you gotta go and hit the well again. Sometimes it just makes sense. You gotta get the guy that everybody knows and loves, and that's you, Chris. We love having you on the Let's Go Devils podcast, the State of the Fan Address. You were one of the first. Not only when you were one of the first guests of this podcast, you were one of the first guests of my tenure hosting this podcast. So you're one of the first in many ways. Chris, you still got me? Sam, I think you lost him, Sam. Sam.
I'm here. I still hear Chris.
Oh, I don't hear
it's
Chris.
just one of those weird things where it's just like,
I hear Chris.
Okay, I hear Chris now. Something happened with me. Maybe there was a bad connection here. But I got everything. Sorry about that, guys. I'm back.
It wasn't my fault, people. It wasn't my fault.
This time, that's the key point.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault this time.
Yeah, it wasn't my fault.
So let's jump right into it. Let's talk trade deadline. The Devils have been tied to a lot of rumors. I want to ignore the Jesper Bratt rumor for just a moment because we'll get to that next. But first, I want to talk about just the team in general. When you look at the structure of this team, in past years there were some obvious pieces: the Kyle Palmieri's, the Travis Zajacs, the Taylor Halls, the Sammy Vatanen. There were those pieces that clearly it made the most sense to trade them away because they were older, they had value. This year, it seems like the only player that kind of fits in that mold is PK Subban, but we've heard rumors about Zacha. There's a couple other players that are going into restricted free agency. Chris, what do you see happening when the Devils attack the trade deadline this year?
Look, they're looking for value in every single way this year. They really are. They're circling the waters. They're checking everything out. They have to. They have no choice. They need to find value. They ideally would want returns that involve players that are, let's face it, more ready than some of the players that they have currently. And it's cold reality. I mean, they have a few opportunities to honestly take advantage of some teams that, let's face it, are so far up against the cap that, look, it's like the song "Suspicious Minds." They're caught in a trap and they can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys got to think of it that way. I mean,
do you have a team in mind that you think might be in that position?
Well, there's a few. I mean, obviously, Vegas could and may not be the big one, depending on who comes back and who doesn't at this point. That's one. There's the curious. You hate to say this. Hi, Toronto. You need a defenseman. We have somebody that is perfect for you. You know, does the trade that's been kind of lollygagging around for the last year and a half finally happen with the Devils and Maple Leafs? Again, nobody really knows, and we know who that guy is, and he creates a little bit of, I would say, spirited debate on Twitter. Maybe almost as much as that other rumor that floated around in the last few days. But there are players that you can get a little bit of value from, but it's not, like everybody has said, it's not that clear-cut, automatic, hey, this guy's got to go. Are there guys that you would like to see go? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming you're talking about number 28s in your playbooks and number 28s in most Devils fans' hearts. Is that who we're talking about when it comes to Toronto?
Yeah, $1 million guy with a 2-cent head. Yeah. I love Damon, but sometimes it's how it is. And as I've said to many people, and it's like, I made the mistake of saying it to him once, and he just looked at me like I had 15 heads, and I'm like, dude, I was like, I'll take you out right now. And he just looked at me, and I'm like, you don't understand. I was like, I'm 140 pounds soaking wet now. I was like, I'll still take you out. I was like, and he's like, all right. He's like, I'll bite. I was like, I'm the person that followed Scott Niedermayer to Anaheim and scared the crap out of him. It was coincidence. I happened to get married to somebody that lived in Southern California that was a Ducks fan. Total coincidence.
There you go.
But that's the thought process is with this trade deadline in particular, never doesn't necessarily quite mean never because of what has happened this year. And whether mm-hmm.
So let's get into that never say never mentality. Because I had a lot of people yelling at me this week, Chris. People were mad at me because I said, the never say never crowd was saying never say never when it came to Jesper Bratt. And I have it on good authority that it's definitely not never. It's not easy. It's not definite. But it's not never on Jesper Bratt. Jesper Bratt having the best season of his career, point per game player, certified top line player, could have been an all-star, should have been an all-star, depending on who you ask. But there's a directive that people are saying that the Devils want to shuffle the deck. A lot of people have assumed that meant Zacha, but it would make a lot more sense to shuffle the deck with Bratt because you'd get more value. But what are your thoughts? What should the Devils do with Jesper Bratt? Do you sell high on a guy who's about to get paid, or do you keep an asset who's 23 years old?
Look, I will say this in the most simplest of ways. If it's up to me, which it's definitely not, and I've heard probably more rumors than I really want to about Jesper Bratt. It is true. I mean, they are exploring on selling as high as humanly possible. But if they don't get something that absolutely wows them, they're going to sign him to a new deal. There's no doubt about it. But if you don't go into this deadline and you go, hey, I didn't maximize every possible avenue, I want Tom Fitzgerald fired on the spot. Because there are enough avenues that at least take shots. It doesn't mean that he had to make a trade necessarily, but that he actually explored. Because look, I'll be honest with you. There's some of these deadlines and the draft and such. I don't think he did his due diligence necessarily, and he got caught. And then he had to react in free agency, for example, and he made the moves that he did. I mean, this is going to be one of those deadlines that it will be talked about for some time. Because remember, this is not the draft to be in the prime position for, in theory, because you never know. I mean, look, we thought the draft a couple of years ago would be great, and it went, and everybody just went, duh. I still remember, it's like, what, the draft, I think it was 2018 or 2019. It was the one where everybody got sick or injured, like in the second half of the season. It's just one of those like freak things where it's like, it looked like the best draft in sliced blood, and it just went completely south. And it proved it, other than a few picks. So what I want to emphasize to people is it's hard to believe that there's only 19 days until the trade deadline. And that it seems like, yeah, we're close, and the chatter is definitely picking up. I mean, I could tell people right off the bat that, look, there's several teams interested in quite a few Devils players, and it's a question of the prices coming down, guys. I mean, right now the prices are it's like anything. It's like evil supply and demand in this case, because you have that salary cap specter. It's going to be flat for at least another couple of years, we think. We hope that it goes up at some point because that actually helps trade value eventually. Yeah. But right now, it's just we're kind of in a holding pattern. I mean, you're hearing a lot, but you're actually not seeing very much. Sounds weird, right?
Yeah. Let me ask you one quick thing, kind of on that topic. Elliot Friedman, I think this is, I can't remember if he just said it on the Jeff Marek show or on 31 Thoughts. Basically, he was talking to Jeff Marek, as he usually is. But he said that he was talking about Vancouver, and this was before the Devils, kicked the doors in on Vancouver. But he was talking about how they might be inclined to make a move because they're a team that's in Canada. And Canada, for a long time, did not let a lot of fans in. So that first round playoff gate might be a little more important to them than it might be for, say, Vegas or, say, Anaheim. Well, even Anaheim was, they were dealing with not full capacity crowds longer than teams like the Devils or the Tampa Bay Lightning or things like that. So what do you think do you think maybe some of these Canadian teams might, or maybe some of these, Pacific teams that are fighting for playoff spots might be more inclined to make a big move trying to get that playoff gate? Or do you think that that's not really a factor?
Look, it has a little bit of an impact. I mean, Anaheim, obviously, because they've held in for so long, and just when you thought that, maybe this could be it for them, they go and beat Boston last night. Was it a perfect game? No, but they won, and that's at this point, that's all that matters, is them accumulating 2 points as many times as humanly possible before the deadline. LA is a team that everybody is going to be keeping an eye on, and it's right now the laser focus with LA is on Chitrin from Arizona. Yeah. It's been so ridiculously narrow-minded. There's like this. I mean, there's like a beacon. It's going off, and it keeps going off the same player. But if for some reason Arizona cannot make that deal, LA is not going to stand pat. They are going to try and take a kick at this. They're another one of those teams that, they could use a little bit of. They could use not only a little bit of the money, but they want to win. Their window, at least with their top guys, is short, and that's being kind. Anze Kopitar is having a renaissance type year. Drew Doughty, if he can stay healthy, is having a pretty good year. Dare I say it? Even Dustin Brown, before National Pancake Day, was doing halfway decent. I know it passed. I know. But overall, look at LA and Anaheim. Vancouver's a weird team, guys. Nobody really knows what Vancouver is going to do. Their brain trust has just gotten kind of the lay of the land of their team. And that's why you see a lot of rumors going around with them in all sorts of directions. And you're right. There's one side of this that you see rumors aimed towards them making the playoffs. You see another group of rumors that see them selling. You see a third group that it's just like, well, I don't know. And it's kind of somewhere in the middle. You're trying to guess. And Mark and I go back and forth all the time. The arguments we have on direct message should probably be their own 31 thoughts, and it would probably be ridiculously successful. But especially with Vancouver, I would love to see them move Connor Garland. It's so far on my wish list, but it's not gonna happen this year.
You don't think
at least not during the trade deadline. And if it does, it's going to be something that comes as something. Basically, if he gets moved, guys, it's because plan A and B got screwed up for Vancouver. And they got sort of caught. They didn't want to get completely out of the sweepstakes, and they decided to make a move. Not for the necessarily sake of making one, but because they really had to do something. I mean, Vancouver's in a cap hell.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not the only team in that position. God, you look at a team like Montreal. Even that's just. You have 9 players on the LTIR, guys. You have
that's a lot.
A whole slew of players on LTIR, and they're over the cap, and they're one of the worst. That's what's going to make this trade deadline different. What shakes first? And I hold out this hope. It's a slim chance, guys, that you see one of the very rare things in hockey. You see this in other sports. A post-trade deadline trade for somebody that's ineligible for the playoffs that frees a team of cap space.
Yeah.
Not illegal.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't know is that the trade deadline is only the trade deadline because of that playoff cutoff. It's not because of you're not allowed to make trades afterwards. You can make trades. It's just, the Devils could make trades with the Sabres in April if they want to.
They could. I mean, it's something that hasn't been done in a very long time. But with the way the salary cap is structured, and the way you have certain teams like Vegas, especially if they want to bring guys back, it's not going to be easy for them. It's a way for them to, don't want to say circumvent on this show because we know the history with New Jersey and circumvention, or quote unquote, the touchy subject. But it's one of those things where and Vegas may not be the only team that explores this. Toronto kind of lucked out because, Jake Muzzin got hurt again. But they still might be in a position if they try to add somebody where that's a possibility. Colorado right now, if they can't kind of finagle, Colorado is really hoping and praying that Bo Byram comes back, guys. They are on pins and needles right now, because if he comes back with, say, a week left of the trade deadline, they'll ship Sam Girard right out the door.
He's had a bad season.
He's had a brutal year. I think he's a $5 million AAV right now. Right around five. It's
that
around
looked like one
five.
of that last year. That looked like one of the best
That looked like a
contracts
great signing,
in the
right?
NHL. It looked like a great contract. Now he's he looks like Ty Smith out there.
Mentally, nobody knows what. I'm sure it'll come out after the season, but something mentally is not right there. It just isn't. It's like the wires are crossed. Everything is snowballed. But he would be one of those players that's traded tomorrow if Byram comes back quick enough. And that's another question mark in of itself, because nobody knows with Byram's repeated concussion history if he's able to come back in time. So that's
Chris,
that's another team. Yep. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's shift gears a little bit. I don't want to keep you too much longer, but we do want to kind of get to two quick things about what the Devils are doing on the ice. You talk about everything going wrong, season from hell. That's exactly what the Devils are going through right now. Everybody's been hurt. Everybody's, there's been a COVID outbreak. The goalie situation is what it is. So I can't sit here and say this is Lindy Ruff's fault, right, per se. But fans are going to want heads to roll after the season. Somebody needs to take responsibility. And with that means take blame when you're in last place in the Metropolitan Division, despite a record terrible season from Philly and, a pretty clear cut and dry top four and bottom four. You're still the worst of the bunch. What do you see happening with Lindy Ruff? Do you think the Devils are going to give him another chance, or do you think they're going to try to hit the reset button?
This is the biggest question that I've seen, and I've gone back and forth with this. There's one coach that needs to go, and I hate to do it because it ruffles a lot of feathers, but he should have never been here this year in the first place. And that's probably Elaine Nasreddine, for better or for worse. If you make a regime change of sorts, like Tom Fitzgerald did, you have to cut. He needed to cut the Pittsburgh cord. If you're going to go with Lindy Ruff, you needed to cut the Pittsburgh cord. It's cold. I mean, look, it's cold. It's callous.
Yeah.
I understand that. But it was clear that it wasn't working. And there are still certain defensemen on this team that will not go on the record and say this. It's not working. There's one defenseman in particular that kind of doesn't want him here. I won't say which one, but he may be involved in a rumor or three. It's not a secret. He can say publicly what he said, but people know. And if somebody is going to take a fall, that makes kind of the most sense. And it's weird because, look, we've talked about this a few times. The Devils' penalty kill, other than a little that the bubble hiccup, as I'm going to call it, or the bubble guppy, and then the early part of this year. Since the early part of this year, the Devils actually have one of the top 8 penalty kills in the league.
It's good,
shockingly enough, which is pretty good. But you know what? That only accounts for about 1/6 of the hockey game, typically. And unfortunately, the other 50 or so minutes are a problem. So is that all goaltending? Well, goaltending definitely does not help. So, you have that. You have the other factor, which is you have an organization that kind of screwed up with an injury to a certain goalie. Mm-hmm. So how do you rectify that? You can't blame anyone there other than looking in the mirror. So the logical head to fall is probably Nazardine at this point. Recchi gets sort of like a short leash, maybe. And Ruff probably gets the same type of short leash where it's like, okay, well, now next year there's just zero excuses, and that's it. I mean, it's unfortunate because it's not the answer that I would say 80 to 90% of Devils fans are looking for, guys. It just isn't. I know, I get it. It's frustrating. Because believe me, I'd want them all gone myself. I honestly, there's a part of me that still does. But I get it.
Yeah. It is hard.
That's the problem.
It's hard to can them after this year. Because you look at the excuses, Dougie Hamilton gets hurt on something weird. Mackenzie Blackwood and Jonathan Bernier both get hurt. Miles Wood gets hurt in preseason. And Jack Hughes breaks his shoulder in the second game of the season. There's excuse after excuse after excuse. Where it kind of falls off is you mentioned the mismanagement of your starting goalie. And not only did you cause a lot of losses directly by playing him through a heel injury that he's been gone for weeks now with, but you probably hurt the kid's confidence. And he went from a guy who thought he could make Team Canada as the starter to a guy who's, has some of the worst statistics in the league. So I think that's the situation where you have to rectify some things. And that kind of transitions into our final point. Chris, I got to ask about the goalies and what, Nico Daws has at least been watchable the past few games. After a rough start to the season in the NHL, he's been amazing in the AHL, but he's had a rough go of it when he put on the New Jersey Devils jersey. What do you think that the Devils do with this position? John Gillies has not been good the past 2 weeks. There are goalies that are available because of this Olympic thing, but you gotta figure it out. And I'm sure strife in Europe is going to hurt that getting players over. We don't have to get into it, but it's just the reality of the situation. What do you think the Devils do? Are we seeing the John Gillies, Nico Daws pairing for the rest of the season?
I mean, they might have to do it that way. Nobody wants to do that, but look, you're not going to disturb what's going on in Utica right now. You just can't. It's like just leave it be. Let them make the playoffs, win some rounds, beat Toronto. Basically, in a sense, guys, if you think about it, remember a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, they had that run and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So this would kind of be like their chance to go, hey, this is what we could have done had it not been for COVID hit, because they were the hottest team in the AHL at that point. And it's almost forgotten by everybody. So you have to at least give a mulligan there and make sure that team is as preserved as possible. But like you said, the problem then becomes, what do you do with the goaltending? And if there's someone out there that's reasonably cheap, they're going to explore it at least as a backup for Daws. Because Daws cannot play back-to-back games, and we saw it again. They tried it, and you couldn't blame them because we saw what Gillies did against Chicago, and I'm still trying to unsee that, guys. I'm sorry, it's really, really bad. There were goals given up that, look, I know beer league goalies that would not get. It's just a matter of fact. There's beer league goalies that would give up goals that bad, and you just can't have that. I think his goals expected dropped by about 3 in one game. That's you just can't have it. So
yeah,
it's being explored. I'm sure it is. You got to have some kind of semi-veteran influence that's better than John Gillies. It did, like we said, this is a team that has to get it right this summer, especially since in the last 5 years, they've basically hurt 2 goalies. If you think about it, there was the delay in Corey Schneider's surgery. Then he finally had the surgery, and he was never right from it. And now you have Mackenzie Blackwood. Look, who had all these problems with lateral movement. He finally gets that fixed. They bring in a figure skating coach of all people. It works. He becomes one of these really good up-and-coming goalies, and then this happens. So I don't care how long it takes for him to recover, but if surgery is the absolute best option, you're doing it. And that's it. This cannot be screwed up. And if that means you have a year where you have to go out, stomach, and find some kind of veteran goalie to sell you along, you're going to have to do it. And that's it. They're going to have to take a little more medicine, and no fan wants to hear this. But do you risk that, or do you go for it? And that's the question that Tom Fitzgerald has to ask himself, and then answer it this summer, not 12 months from now, not in right before training camp. But it's got to be done by no later than July 1st. He's got to go into free agency knowing what he's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think that the Devils they're facing an off season of truth. They have to figure it out. Chris, this has been great. I really appreciate you coming on, giving some of your expertise, breaking some rumors. Chris, you're right for just about everywhere. So why don't you take a second, promote what you got coming up, tell everybody where they can find your stuff, and what articles you're especially excited about coming up lately.
The joke is, let me take a really deep breath. Okay. All right. For those that don't know, I do work with Mark Eason over at my NHL Rumors. We do a lot of those little vignette stories that you'll see. We're going to be doing something I hope by next week, where we start doing a sort of trade trending barometer of players that their trade value is going up or their trade value is going down. Look, again, we always preface by saying this, that is subjective with a little bit of objectivity mixed in. So it's not perfect. It's a snapshot in time. Don't shoot the messenger, for example. Obviously, that's one thing. Another thing that I'm doing as always is I'm writing more betting articles than I can freaking hang my hat on. And you can find literally something everywhere, whether it's from Sports Betting Dime, whether it's Vegas betting, Canadian betting sites, Canada sports betting. Yeah, I know it's a lot. And of course, do not forget, guys. The most important thing, of course, is I still do occasionally put some of my thoughts online occasionally, and do a few podcasts now and then, talking about obviously the Devils and a lot of other teams as well. But the one thing that I'm most excited about, obviously, is something that I can kind of let out of the bag. I am going to be going up to Utica, hopefully for round numero uno of the AHL playoffs to cover them. That is the plan, guys. If COVID willing, everything goes well, because I found out today that my niece now can go to Devils games.
There you go.
Yeah, she go figure. Gets the exemption the day that the mask mandate is going to be lifted.
Huh. Well, there you go.
You gotta admit it's funny. It's like one of those things. So again, everybody, look. As I said, I'm on Twitter, Chris Wassel DFS. Ask freaking questions. Don't be shy. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I'm not going to answer your question. It's 3:00 in the morning and I'm watching the Paralympics. I'm going to answer your question. That's just how it is. I'm not the average. I never will be, guys. It's what's gotten me this far.
And it's going to keep getting you further and further. And that's why we appreciate you, Chris Wassel. We'll always help promote what you got going on. You promote us all the time. We appreciate the partnership. A very good friend of the podcast, Chris Wassel, DFS, a must follow over the next 3 weeks while we head into the trade deadline to see what's going on. Chris, thanks for coming on, and we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Chris. That is Chris Wassel. You can find him on Twitter at Chris Wassel DFS. Possibly going to Utica.
Sam, you saw he snuck in there that the Jesper Bratt rumors are at least have a semblance of truth, and I told you that. I told you that I have people telling me about the semblance. The semblance, Sam.
Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you something. Buy low, sell high. It's an interesting question about Jesper Bratt right now. What would you give? What would you want in return? Would you give up Jesper Bratt? It's a debatable question. I think everybody's on the block.
And you know what? The ownership group has a past where they've done this before. They sold very high on Michael Carter-Williams when he was with the 76ers, and the guy never hit the peaks he had when he was younger. So they have a tried and true system where this works in the past. I think the Devils of now are in a different spot than the Sixers of then. I think the Sixers are still in the, in relative beginning of their rebuild. I personally think they don't make the move. Hockey is a little different. I don't think anybody's going to step up to the plate. I think it's smart to make him available. I don't think it's smart to make a move based on what I see people offering. I just don't. I don't. What is anybody going to offer right now? To make a move that makes sense, the Devils would have to trade. The only assets that are available, Sam, on playoff caliber teams is like Jake DeBrusk, Vladimir Tarasenko. You're not trading Jesper Bratt for those players. I love Tarasenko. I would do a lot of things to get him on this Devils team, and I would be very excited. I've loved his entire career. You're not trading Jesper Bratt for Vladimir Tarasenko. That's just not what the value is. I don't know, Sam. I'm in a spot right now where I'm curious of what happens next. I'm looking forward to the next few weeks. And Chris talking about the pieces he's got. Pucksandpitchforks.com is just going to be a content machine for the next 19 days. We're going to have as many trade deadline articles that I could possibly think of. Every single angle. And that's what I wanted to bring up to you guys. Ramona Rice is mad at me in the comment section, Sam. I've pissed off another customer. Another unhappy customer with Nick Villano. She's unhappy with me because of my mentions of trading Bratt and the situation at hand. And I'm sorry, Ramona, and everybody out there who's been yelling at me. I've lost followers. I probably hurt your listenership just for this week. They always leave for a week. They come back after a week, and I know that they do, so I don't stop what I'm doing because they always come back. You don't know why, Sam? Because if it's out there, I'm writing about it. If it's out there, I'm tweeting about it. If it's out there, I'm podcasting about it. If it's out there, I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to continue to do that because it's what's made me popular today. It's going to make you mad sometimes. It's going to make you not like what I have to say. But I'm going to tell you what my opinion is. And I'm never going to hold back. I'm never going to play politics with you. You know, even though Chico last week, you hear me said I gave him a political answer. But I'm never going to play politics with you. I'm going to at all times tell you what I think of the situation. And maybe I've burnt bridges for it. You know, maybe that's why, certain members of a certain team aren't on this podcast anymore. And you know what, Sam, that, I think you're okay with that. I think I'm okay with that. I think that I'm never going to bite my tongue because of the ramifications of what I actually think. I'm going to think through my thoughts so I don't say something stupid because that's always on the table. But I'm always going to give my true and utter opinion. And Ramona Rice is asking why Brett. Ramona, again, I wouldn't trade Brett. If I was in charge with the Devils, I wouldn't be trading Brett. But you heard it. You heard it from Chris. He's out there. He's mentioned the Devils are not hanging up the phone is probably how I would put it. If you call them and say just for Brett, they don't say no. They say go on. It's the conversation doesn't end there. It ends if you ask about Nico Hischier. It ends if you ask about Jack Hughes. It probably ends if you ask about Mackenzie Blackwell, but he's hurt, so that's a moot point. I would say it ends at Dawson Mercer. I don't think they're trading him either. And Luke Hughes. That's probably the only, you could probably even get Holtz, I think, is close to a hang-up. There are a couple things that concern the team there's a couple concerning things as far as the outside of the scoring parts of the game, but I think overall, I think that they're happy with the entire structure of his game so far. But there's a lot. So tomorrow, the Devils or Pucks and Pitchforks is going to have a fun article. This is just fun. I'm not making up any of these trades. Cat, if you're familiar with the cat-friendly armchair GM, I perused to see what other teams' fans are proposing in trades, and I'm commenting on those. So we got trades for Severson, we got trades for Subban, we got trades for Zacha, a bunch of different trade deadline ideas from different teams, and just kind of seeing what other teams are willing to give up for these assets. What their fans are willing to give up. It's a nice think piece. It's just an entertainment value piece, Sam. That's coming out this week. I'm going to do a draft piece. I hope that'll be out by the weekend. I'm going to shoot for Friday, but I got plans with the wife. So, we got to work around that. But hopefully that'll definitely be up by Saturday. And then, this weekend we're going to have a bunch of trade deadline pieces. And then next week we're going to have a bunch of trade deadline pieces. And the week after we're going to have a bunch of trade deadline pieces. And Sam, March, what is it? March, it's 19 days from now. Is it March 20th or 21st? It's 21st, right?
21st.
March
Monday.
21st. Monday. 2 weeks from Monday. Trade deadline. I'm going to, we all know I work the overnights. I'm going to wake up early at noon. And I'm going to be here tweeting with you. Sam, I'm sure you're going to be around doing stuff. We'll be doing stuff. We'll figure out the whole kit and caboodle.
I don't know my schedule yet.
Oh, well.
Day. I'm trying to work it.
There will be articles as soon as the trade goes down, as long as it doesn't happen between 7 a.m. and noon. As soon as the trade goes down, an article will go out. It'll be like that. As soon as the trade goes down, an article will go out. Every single time. You will have instant reactions on March 19th. PucksandPitchforks.com is the place to be, Sam. We're going to get articles all day, all day, all day.
Yeah. Just to further the point, because pucksandpitchforks.com is going to have all this great content. Thinking about Jesper Bratt, if it was for a player, if it's just Jesper Bratt alone and you're getting pieces back, unless Connor McDavid's name's in there, I would say no to every single trade. If Bratt were to be traded, it would probably be packaged in a blockbuster deal with maybe potentially Severson. That's the only scenario I think that Bratt would ever leave the Devils. I don't think you trade Bratt for a couple pieces. Unless a team is so hurting with the salary cap. Because I'll tell you what Jesper Bratt has done this year, forget about the stats. I'm not a stats guy. I don't like analytics. He's become a leader in the locker room, and that's something that the money can't buy. So unless you bring somebody of that caliber that's in a different league than Jesper Bratt, I don't think any team, like you're saying, could even offer anything unless he's part of a package, a much, much, much bigger deal, which would be a complete shakeup of the team. And I don't think Tom Fitzgerald is ready to do that. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But I think I think what they're doing right now is appraising, seeing what teams are going to offer, use that market value, and then analyze. And you made a great point with the Sixers. This is not basketball; it's completely different sport. Again, leaders don't grow on trees in the NHL. Some players have it, some players don't. Bratt put a focus on that the last few years, and he comes into training camp this past, back in September. He said, "I want to be part of the core leadership." He literally said that, and we're like, "Well, you need to get benched again in order for that to happen?" But you know what? He hasn't been benched in a while, and he's been very consistent. So, to Ramona's point, nobody wants Bratt to be traded, but just like any other player on the team, you're always listening to offers. You try to, appraise, what each player is worth in the trade market. It's business. It's nothing personal against Bratt. I hope he stays with the Devils for a very long time. You don't get these type of players too often.
You don't.
Sixth round
pick. Man, it's only is it 5 players in his draft class have more points than him? And he's the 6th round pick.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I guess wrapping up, Nick. Pucksandpitchforks.com. Pucksandpitchforks.com. I got to talk to you about some article ideas off air because I don't want to say it on air. Because then I got to, sometimes I get writer's block or whatever. But trade deadline's always fun. It's a good time to troll.
Oh, boy.
Would you trade Jack Hughes?
All right. That one's not getting off the cutting room floor, I'll tell you that.
The case to trade Jack Hughes. Oh, that would be. I bet you even I don't know that can damage the brand. So, but anyway, I'm only kidding around. But want to thank all those listening in today, watching us. Beware, Devils Rangers this Friday. We've got Game Day Live, Vinny Parisi and I, and also Devils After Dark this Friday. But also go to pucksandpitchforks.com because it's that time of year, Nick.
We're here.
You guys sometimes pump out so many articles, I don't even know what to do with myself. It's just like I would have to spend an entire afternoon analyzing what you guys are saying, the opinions, and then, of course, at Pitchfork Puck, the comments. That's what I look forward to in the next few weeks.
the Twitter is going to be on fire. Go follow us at Pitchfork Puck.
Yeah, God forbid I say something stupid like trading Jack Hughes, Mr. Turnover.
Listen, there's been times I've had to mute conversations because I'm like, I've gotten all I need to get out of this conversation. We're moving on. But yeah, Sam, we're done.
By the way,
night.
I don't mute. I actually enjoy. I'm actually enjoyed the nonsense.
Oh, I won't. I'll take it for a minute, especially if it's my nonsense. If I wrote the nonsense, I'll defend the nonsense. But sometimes you just got to walk away from the nonsense, Sam.
Oh, one more plug before we go. The Dawes Pound, Tuesday night, Taj Lounge 973 before the Devils take on the Colorado Avalanche. Little Fireboy is driving down from Nova Scotia to meet up. Little Fireboy, shout out on YouTube Live. Anyway, all right, that's it, Nick. I'll see you later. I'll see you next week. Till next time, let's go Devils.